All right, so let's jump right into the book of Amos. Now, he is one of the most intense prophets you'll find in the Old Testament. And today, we're going to unpack the really dramatic final section, chapters 7 through 9. It's this incredible series of visions that starts with terrifying judgment, but ends with unbelievable hope.
You know, the book kicks off with this line, and it just sets the stage perfectly. You can tell right away Amos isn't messing around. His message isn't some quiet suggestion, it's a roar. It's a roar against a nation that had gotten rich by stepping on the poor. It's basically a warning shot. God is about to act, and you won't be able to ignore it.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The story doesn't just start with fire and brimstone. No, the first part of this whole section is actually about God's patience. We see these visions of total destruction, but they get put on pause. It shows us that, for a little while anyway, the deadlines were still flexible.
So God shows Amos two visions. First up, a swarm of locusts. So huge it would eat everything. This was a direct callback to the curses they were warned about if they broke their covenant with God. And then, a vision of fire. A fire so powerful it was literally eating up the land itself. Both of these visions spelled total, absolute ruin for the nation. And after seeing each of these, Amos does something incredible. He steps up. He becomes this intercessor. He doesn't just see the vision and report it, he actually argues with God for the people. He pleads, basically saying, look, how can they possibly survive this? They're too small, too fragile.
And here we get this brilliant little window into God's character. Because just one person prayed, God relents. He pulls back on the judgment, not just once, but twice. It's a huge sign that mercy was still an option, that repentance was still possible. The door wasn't shut yet.
Okay, so that raises a pretty big question, right? If God was willing to back off, what on earth happened? What was that one moment that just pushed everything past the point of no return?
Well, there was a specific event that completely flipped the switch. The whole story pivots right here, from a disaster that could be stopped to a consequence that was absolutely unavoidable. And it all boils down to one intense confrontation.
Amos is confronted by this guy, Amaziah. And he's not just anybody, he's the head priest at the royal sanctuary in Bethel. So he's a big deal. And Amaziah doesn't even bother to argue about the message itself. He just rejects Amos, the messenger. He basically tells him, pack your bags, go home, and stop talking about God around here.
And that right there, that's the turning point. When the official religious leadership straight up rejects God's warning, the chance for mercy is gone. It's like they're saying, we don't want to hear from God anymore. So from this moment on, the visions change. They stop being warnings of what might happen and become declarations of what will happen.
Now we get into the final set of visions. And you'll notice there's no more pleading from Amos and no more relenting from God. These next three images are verdicts. They spell out in no uncertain terms the consequences of Israel's choices.
The third vision is so simple, but wow, is it powerful. Amos sees God standing next to a wall, and in his hand he's holding a plumb line. It's just a simple tool, but the symbolism here is absolutely devastating.
So what's a plumb line? Well, it's a builder's tool. It's basically just a weight on a string. You hold it up against a wall, and gravity shows you what's perfectly vertical. It tells you if the wall is straight and stable, or if it's crooked and about to fall down. It's the standard of what's true and right. The meaning is just crystal clear, isn't it? God has held up his perfect standard of justice and righteousness against the nation of Israel, and guess what? The wall is crooked. This isn't about them not doing the right rituals. This is about justice. The very foundations of their society were rotten with corruption. And any good builder will tell you, a crooked wall has to come down. Okay, the fourth vision, it seems kind of nice at first glance, right? A basket of summer fruit. But hidden inside this simple picture is this really clever and pretty ominous prophetic wordplay. Now this is super cool. This whole vision works because of a wordplay in the original Hebrew. You see, the word for summer fruit is kites, and that sounds almost exactly like the word for the end, which is ketz. So when God shows Amos a basket of kites, he's declaring that the ketz has come for Israel. The harvest is over. Their time is up.
And that brings us to the fifth and final vision, and this one is by far the most terrifying. Amos is brought to the very heart of Israel's religious world, the sanctuary. The one place they thought was safe is about to become ground zero for their destruction. God himself is standing right there at the altar, and he's the one commanding that the temple be destroyed. The very place people would run to for safety is now a death trap, and the message is just absolute. There is nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. God's judgment will find them. And with that, the message of judgment just hits this terrible crescendo. It really feels like that's it, right? Total ruin, game over. But then, just when you think the story is finished, the book takes this sharp, radical, totally unexpected turn. After 9 chapters of these relentless warnings and these final verdicts, the entire tone just flips. Because judgment isn't the last word. Amos actually ends with one of the most beautiful and powerful promises of restoration you'll find anywhere in the Old Testament.
Just look at this imagery. It is a complete 180 from all the curses. Instead of famine and destruction, the land is going to be so ridiculously fertile that the mountains themselves will look like they're flowing with wine. This isn't just about survival, this is supernatural, over-the-top abundance.
And the promise covers everything. God says he'll rebuild the line of David, their kings, which had become like a broken-down shack. He'll restore the cities that were turned to rubble. And he will plant his people back in their land, so securely this time that they will never, ever be uprooted again.
So, what's the big takeaway? It's that God's judgment always has a purpose, but it never, ever cancels out his ultimate promises. The exile will be reversed. The broken relationship will be healed. God's plan for his people is going to win in the end.
So when we look back at this whole journey, you can see this really clear story arc. It starts with this window where mercy is possible, moves through that critical moment of rejection into a time of unavoidable judgment, and finally, it lands on this unshakable foundation of hope.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty powerful question for ourselves. I mean, the story of Amos is ancient, but these ideas, they're timeless. It really forces us to ask, how do we respond to warnings? And when everything seems like it's falling apart, where do we choose to place our hope? It's a message that still roars today.